Hello, welcome to my review of the sixth studio album by Nelly Furtado called The Ride, which was released on March 31st of this past year, 2017. Before I get into this review, I just want to give a shout out. I have just reached 100 subscribers on my channel, and I just want to say thank you to all of you for clicking and for watching these videos and hopefully for enjoying them. I know it doesn't seem like a big number, but I never expected myself to get to 100. So, it's a big deal for me. I don't know. This is a small channel. And I mean, I would love for it to grow, but to reach that number, it really meant a lot. I don't know. I really enjoy doing these videos. I know they're kind of low budget. They're kind of just like filmed on a phone. They're not filmed with some fancy camera. Maybe in the future I can upgrade a bit my situation. I mean, I miss filming outside, but I just realized I was like really kind of lowballing it doing it out there, and I had to like haul all my stuff out each time, and it was easier to just film in my room. So that's why I'm not filming outside anymore. But anyway, hopefully I will continue this path and keep doing more reviews. I've got so many albums I need to go through. It's like completely overwhelming. So I just wanted to give that shout out in the beginning here. So hopefully you enjoy this review and many more to come. So Nelly Furtado, The Ride. This is her most underrated album that she'll probably ever create. And this was definitely one of the more underrated albums, I think, of 2017. It definitely flew under the radar, but Nelly was expecting it to. She didn't even really choose to create a lead single or any sort of single for this album whatsoever, because she knew she was not at any point catering to radio play or any sort of real commercial success. This was released through her own imprint, Nelstar Records, which she left Interscope after they mismanaged The Spirit Indestructible and did not promote that album whatsoever, parted ways, and she's really doing the independent artist thing now, and I really appreciate her persevering and still making music. It's been a hot minute since The Spirit Indestructible came out, and yes, I will review that album, as well as Loose and, all of that. Her more commercially successful stuff I will review as well. But I'm a big Nelly Furtado fan, and I was introduced to her through Loose, back when it was on the radio. Her song Say It Right is one of the most iconic songs of the 2000s decade, in my opinion. But, there was always something kind of experimental and different. Each album she created sounded very different and kind of embraced a somewhat different style of music. This time around, she's actually working with a very sort of alternative rock sound or alternative electronic sound. She's partnered with John Congleton, who is a producer who has worked with a ton of artists like St. Vincent. He's worked with Chairlift. Lana Del Rey has even worked with him, but he's definitely a less mainstream and more of a independent alternative scene type figurehead. And the pairing of Congleton and Furtado is interesting because Congleton is not geared at all to making pop songs. He's definitely more in an abstract headspace in terms of electronic production. And so Nelly bridged her sort of pop sensibility. She confesses she loves a pop song. I mean, a lot of her songs are pop songs and follow that vein, although she also experiments with Latin sounds, alternative electronica. All of these things on this album are kind of all blended together, and her voice is really the one thing that kind of unites it as a Nelly Furtado record. The songwriting on this album is also really rich. She wrote almost pretty much every single song except for a cover, Sticks and Stones, which is by this artist Arlissa, that she just performed a cover of. So besides Sticks and Stones, every single song she wrote or had part doing writing for, and Congleton produced most of the songs except for Tap Dancing and Carnival Games. In fact, Carnival Games, it looks like Nelly Furtado produced and wrote entirely herself. The album art is done by this artist, Samantha McCurdy. This album was actually crafted in sort of the Dallas, Texas underground independent, like hippie art scene, and she was sort of an up-and-coming graphic designer artist that Nelly was introduced to, and so she created this album art. It's a really unique abstract album cover, and I really love it. I think it embodies the sound and essence of this album really well, and that it's a little bit offsetting and it's a little bit different and not quite, it's a little bit head scratching, but in a good way. And it also gives a sense of humbleness and humility to the record that I think really, just her in those overalls holding those sunflowers, there's an innocence to her image and her persona that she's portraying on this album. She's not coming off as some pretentious figure. She describes this album as her hangover album, and it definitely has that sort of after the party reflecting deeper on issues in life, and it definitely dives into some really heavy subject matter throughout some of the songs. And there's a real understanding of wanting to figure out how to keep going. She did say that she was coming off of a pretty dark time in her life after The Spirit Indestructible was released. There, was some like really big issues that she had to deal with in her life, and this album helped her sort of understand and work through them, as most artists find when they create an album that is so much more of themselves than just like a manufactured product by a record label. It's also, I mean, just interesting to note that before she put out this album, in the gap between Spirit and this album, she actually worked at a record store. She was sort of taking a step out of the mainstream. She was just like working at a store. She was working behind a cash register. She took classes at a college. She took pottery classes. She took I think, some creative writing classes at a college in Toronto, I think. So she was just sort of like living life. She was sort of experimenting with different ways of seeing the world through less of this sort of like hyper-focused, celebrity-focused lens. And, yeah, Nelly has like kind of dropped out of the mainstream consciousness, which is a shame. But, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it really means she can actually create her own stuff. If it comes at the cost of album sales, I still think it's a worthwhile change and sacrifice, because now she gets to release music she really, really enjoys. And she did state that this is not indicative on any kind of music she might make in the future. This is sort of like a one-time collaboration. This was just like all of her albums are so different sounding, so she just sort of morphs and changes from album to album, which is really cool. There are through lines, of course. The first opening song, Cold Hard Truth, is definitely the one song on this album that does scream single a little bit. It was released before the album actually came out, and there is a little bit more of a pop hook to this song that I think is very undeniably catchy, and I think really hooks the listener really far in. I mean, it introduces her voice beautifully, but there's also this abrasiveness to the song and the production. She says, "You shouldn't laugh, it's not funny." And there's this reverberation to the sound that's kind of jarring at first. And so the song is like predictable and yet unpredictable at the same time. The cold, hard truth is, I'm better off without you. The cold, hard truth is, I don't need you to be happy. But it's telling the truth like it is. And I like that it's a little bit hard and edgy, the sound, because it's not fluffy. It's not telling you the truth as though it's a pretty thing. Like, it hurts to know that I actually have to be single right now, that I actually don't need you in my life, because we all think, oh, ideally we want to be with someone, but the truth is if this is being forced and it's not working, then this harsh reality is that I'm better off without you. So the truth is a bitter pill to swallow, but it needs to be swallowed nonetheless. The production on this song, I think, is one of the strongest by John Congleton. There are some songs on this record where I do think it gets a little murky and a little bit overpowering for Nelly's beautiful voice, and I feel like the pairing doesn't always work so well. But on this song, it really does, because it has a beat that is bouncy, it's fun, it's like kind of off-putting, and it fits this energy of this song really well. And I also like the instrumentals that are thrown in, like with those sounds like some bells and some drums that are incorporated into the song, giving it a real urgency. The next song, Flatline, goes off of, heart rate monitor sound of a heartbeat. Oh, and this song is definitely one of the more experimental songs on the record. Talking about someone who's at a really low point in their life, who needs to show a sign of vital signs, who needs to show signs of life. I've got a flat line, give me a vital sign. Driving in the worst conditions, head on with a full collision. Now I'm on the tar in pieces, body parts are all around. Took off without looking back, you couldn't cut my heart some slack. Tried to patch it up with my hands. I call for backup, this is bad. I'm breathing, barely breathing. My pulse is barely beating. So this is definitely embodying that sort of after the breakup or after the collision or after the party sort of sentiment of being like on the floor, completely lost and confused as to what just happened, and feeling this desperation to understand and reconcile what just happened, possibly in a relationship or in some sort of altercation you had with someone. Like, why did it have to be so chaotic and so destructive? And this song has an element of sort of self-destructive nature. It feels kind of chaotic, and it feels very urgent, and there's almost a stress to the song and her delivery, but she still rises above to create a really strong pop hook that's just pop enough to grab you into the song before it dives right back into this sort of just like brooding sound. That these two songs, as they open the record, really just are brooding, dark, dealing with stuff. They're really showcasing John Congleton's production, probably in the best light, I would say, because then later on the record, when he does go into it, sometimes things get, like I said, a little bit overpowering. The next song, Carnival Games, like I said, its credits is that it's just Furtado. She made this and produced this song entirely herself, apparently. This song is definitely, it's not like, well, it's not a song that's going to get stuck in your ear. It's a song that bears repeated listening because there's a lot going on in this song. Thematically, it speaks about her separation from fame and her understanding that, you know, fame and the ride of life, which is thematically what this album is about, can look so fun and alluring, like it's just a carnival and playing games and riding rides. But she's illustrating how all of this can be a real is really an illusion. It's this, if there's no heart and soul behind all of these experiences within fame, then it's actually all very hollow, and it'll end up leaving you very drained. You know, if you spend enough cash at the Carnival Games, you'll have a prize in your hand when you walk away. Let it slip through your fingers, and you'll never know what winning's really like. This line really hit home for me. You know, if and I think it speaks to any artist who is so in the moment, so obsessed with chasing fame and the glitz and glam of it, that they think they've won. They think that they've actually triumphed personally, when in reality, this was a commercial triumph. This wasn't necessarily something that fulfilled their soul or their needs. And they never will really know what winning's really like if they just let it slip through their fingers, if they let true understanding of figuring out your own personal space and what really living is really about. If you don't focus on that, life is going to slip through your fingers. You know, time is just going to keep on rolling. There's a reflectiveness to the song. You can tell that Nelly's reflecting on her past experiences with fame. I mean, she, for one, if anyone, has this experience because she's been in and out of the spotlight, and she really has some stuff to, some details to spill about it. I keep going on this carousel because it spins me so well. You know, she speaks about how addicting it can be. And this doesn't have to be about just fame. It can be about chasing anything that looks pretty or alluring on the surface, but maybe is a little bit more hollow or underneath, or it's just so temporary. You know, a ride is only on for 3 minutes and then it's over, and you have to pay to go on it. You know, there's all of these metaphors that she beautifully illustrates in this song. And lyrically, I think it's one of the strongest songs on this record. The production is a little bit more laid back and subdued. Obviously, it doesn't have those John Congleton hard-hitting beats. But again, he wasn't on this song, so we wouldn't expect that. And I like that it sort of tones things down. Because the next song, Live, is really, really over the top, but in a really fun, alluring way. It's a fun song, but it's also urgent, just like a lot of these songs are. She hits some really high vocals on this song. And it has an interesting message of basically saying, I don't want to live if I can't have you. We all go through those moments where we get really frustrated and we get just like so down about the fact that we're going to be alone or that something has to go for us to feel happy. And they're like, well, no, I don't. I want to fight against this. And so instead of her necessarily embracing this sort of solitary lifestyle or this sort of one woman army sort of aesthetic, she's actually confessing that it's really hard for her to let go of this, and it takes a lot of hard and lonely nights to sort of really understand like how to keep living after a breakup or after something ends. The harshness of that is counterbalanced by this kind of really fun, like dancey instrumental that kind of, it feels almost like a circus, like it has a playful, repetitive nature to it that is really bouncy and fun and cute. And so I really like the production on this song. Again, it gets kind of overpowering, but it's okay. It's just an interesting kind of off the beaten track kind of song for her. But she really, really belts it out on this song. Her voice is really strong. Okay, so then we come to the next song, Paris Sun. This song goes back in vein, I think, a little bit more into songs that she's done in the past. It has a little bit more of a sensual swagger to it. I mean, it has this undeniable sexy beat in the background that's this electronic, like, repeated synth that just can't you can't help but move listening to. Your collar pops in the latest style. I feel romance hanging in your smile. Is it just me or the Paris sun? All in on this boulevard, making everything so ooh la la. So there's a sexiness to this song, and it's sort of understanding, well, it's putting yourself out there and sort of seeing maybe the light is just making this more sexy or more appealing, but there's something here. And it's like it's just sort of like a love letter to that initial attraction and all of the, all of the components of a romantic getaway kind of coming together just right. And so, in this aspect, this song kind of veers a little bit different in a different direction from a lot of the other songs on the album because this song is more about like setting up a romance. This song is more about like that intrigue. And I think it fits more thematically on songs from other records that she's created, though it definitely fits in the sound and scope of this album as well. And it's a really fun song you can't help but dance to. Although it does get a little bit murky when they start to the keyboard actually gets really strong on this song, and the electric sounds that back up her voice get really big and maybe a little overpowering at some points, because I do feel like at some point her voice gets a little lost in the overpowered production of this song. So then we come to the cover song Sticks and Stones, which is, like I said, done by this artist called Arlissa. She first heard this song and she just fell in love with it and wanted to cover it. And it's a really fun, just undeniable, catchy song. Tell me why we work so hard to break these bones. I don't want to fight battles. I don't want to kill myself to try and understand myself or to try and make something happen. And can we stop fighting each other so much? Can we lay down these sticks and stones? This could have a relationship theme around it, or it could be a broader picture of society, and everyone throwing sticks and stones at one another, either politically or socially in some kind of form. So it has a bit of that utopian sort of let's all come together undertone, but it's not too overt or cheesy in any way. And so it's a fun song, because she didn't write it, I don't go too much more into that. But it again has some really fun production. It's again more on the accessible side on this record, I would definitely say. There are songs that are a lot less accessible to the casual pop listener. And I would say this is definitely one of those songs that I would recommend because it has a real hook. It has a structure that's a little bit more recognizable to people who are used to listening to like Nelly Furtado music. Then we come to the song Magic. I think this might be one of my favorite songs on this record. I love how it starts out just so close to the microphone and so insular in its sound with just some nice, this is where we sort of get the introduction of some nice light keyboard synth work, which I really love about this record. It's shimmery and it's ephemeral and sort of distant, but it's close to the sound as well. And this sort of is a nice breakup from like the hard hitting edgy beats. But don't get me wrong, this song gets really hard and rough as we progress through the song. The song is basically talking about like, why has this distance come between us? Why do you not feel the magic anymore? Or do you dream of me even at night anymore? Where's the magic in this relationship? Look what life's done to you. You hear lies in everybody's truths. Like you're unable to see the good in life. You're unable to grasp at the positive, and you're so jaded and shut down by everything now. And I want to try and open you up again. I want to try and let you see the magic in the world. And so this song ends up getting very urgent towards the end. It starts out kind of a little bit more warm and a little bit more anecdotal when she's just talking about how she drunk dialed you again last night. Like, maybe I just came to you because I know we've been away apart for some time, but I couldn't stop thinking about you. And I know you're not that interested in me anymore. But it starts out kind of innocent, and then it grows into something like a little bit more urgent. Like, she's begging this person, like, understand the magic again of this relationship. Let's spark something beautiful again. And it ends with just this breakdown of like this heavy guitar sound that just overpowers you. It comes off a little bit overpowering and maybe a little too abrasive, but I think it fits in the urgency of the song and the lyrics. I'm not crazy about the end of the song, but I can live with it, and I think the beginning half kind of counterbalances it pretty well. But like I said, John Congleton likes to just get very kind of discordant and very kind of loud and in your face, and he does sort of want to put that middle finger to anything that might resemble a pop song in any of these songs that he works on, and I think that's just characteristic of his sound. I think it works. It keeps you on your toes with this record. One thing I will say is you never know what's coming. This record is not predictable. There's no, moment where you know what's happening. Is the drop coming? Is this where the chorus belts? Is this where things tone down? No. This album's going to keep you on your toes. All right, then we come to one of the lead singles of this album, even though it wasn't actually a single, but she did actually release a music video for it. One of my favorites, if not my favorite song on this album, Pipe Dreams. This song has a real throwback sound to it. This has some R&B soul vibes incorporated. It's something I kind of wish maybe more of the rest of the album had, because when I first heard this song, it just got me so excited about where she was going on this album. I want to live in a kaleidoscope. I know that we can only give when we have a little hope. I don't want to live without any goals. Can't protect me from nothing. Can't save me from the truth. You can't even save me from you. There's a lot of really interesting lyrics to this song that actually makes it kind of tricky to unpack, because there's so much that she's saying, I think, beneath the surface of all these metaphors and the understanding of what she means by a pipe dream and what she means by I want to live in a kaleidoscope. The song is a kaleidoscope of sounds, first of all. So I think for me, it's almost one of those songs where the sound of the song kind of overpowers the lyrics, and I don't find myself actually listening to the lyrics too deeply. The lyrics are abstract and beautiful, and I find them, I appreciate them for what they are, but as far as construing some sort of real straightforward meaning from it, I've still had trouble, like, looking at this song, understanding, I do get that if I can't really know you, I'd rather walk on. And I think that summarizes the theme the best or the message of this song the best. It's that, don't treat me to illusions. Don't sell me a pipe dream. I don't want that. If I can't really be with you, if this can't be real, if anything in this life is fake or dripped in illusion, I don't want a part of it. I've been sold these cheap tricks before, and I see right through it. This song builds and builds and layers and layers and layers on top of itself so beautifully. The harmonizations on this song are exquisite. The atmospheric sound effects and layerings are just so out of this world. I really recommend this song. Seriously, you gotta listen. It's got some old school sounds. It sounds like something straight off of her album Folklore, because it has that whimsical sort of hushed sound that is a little bit R&B influenced. So I really, really love this song. The music video is so beautiful. She just shot it in someone's house. So there's this really kind of domestic feeling to the song, and she has like mirrors and light reflecting in mirrors and portraits that show beautiful little pictures. There's all these hidden little things in this song, just like the song itself. It's something you can really kind of just feel your way around, and it doesn't hit you over the head by any means, which is why it's a bit different from the rest of the album. It really strips things back. There is a bit of that pulsing beat in the back. It's like a metronome. Bum, bum, bum. It keeps the tempo of this song similar. Like I said, the tempo never really increases, but it escalates in layering and in sound. And then her voice goes higher and higher. And I just love the keyboard organ effect, because it's so soulful at the end, and it just beautifully illustrates all of these things coming together in this sonic sort of wonderland. I don't know how else to describe it. It's a really fun, endearing, well, it's not necessarily fun in that it's danceable, but it's fun to listen to. It's just an earworm. And it's not the most accessible. It doesn't have an easily discernible melody, but the melody is there, and the beat carries the song, and it just layers. Like I said, it's just layering these simmery, gossamer sort of sounds on top of each other until it really crescendos into something soulful and powerful. And then it ends with just these nice light synthesizers that feel so airy and warm. There's a real feeling of warmth. This song embodies that. And you can just feel this sort of like coming home again, like feeling so, safe in the sound. And maybe it speaks to being in your home environment where you're safe and the doors are all shut and you found yourself again. Very well done. Bravo, Nelly and Congleton, for creating this amazing song. It just blew me away when I first heard it, and it really piqued my interest for this album. So the next song, Palaces, brings us back up to speed. This is a dire, urgent song, probably the most urgent, maybe next to Flatline, saying, break free from the chains into love. We built palaces, but palaces fade. again, alluring to cheap things like money and fame, using that as a metaphor for things that don't really matter in the long run if we don't have love. None of this stuff, this empire we've built of fame and fortune, is going to matter if we are not breaking free from the chains that hold us back to really loving everyone, and not just in a relationship. I think this song has a broader scope of her talking about society. I don't really think she's talking so much about a relationship in this song. I think she said she was inspired to write this song when she was in Africa, and she saw these great palaces, tribal historical palaces that they have, but, she was inspired by that, and it made her think about, like, the human condition and build how we build these great things, but yet we still have some other things we need to work on. I don't know, she just played around with all of this idea of, like, how we can build such amazing architectural structures, but we struggle with building sometimes, like, true loving connections between one another, and I think she was just exploring that. I mean, we still are a very broken world to some extent, although there's so much good in it. And though, so this song just, it really is a call to love, call to action for that. Then we come to Tap Dancing. This song is again a little bit of a break from the rest of the album. This song, I think, beautifully characterizes where she is right now in her life. You know, she sings about, in sort of a metaphorical way, how she used to dance so beautifully for you, for the listener. She used to perform, and she loves to perform. She lives off of that. And she wants to tap dance for you again. But I'm not perfect at it. You know, she says, falling over my 2 feet, hoping that you like what you see in the skies. I'm tap dancing, making up the moves as I go along, forgetting all the words to my song until I cry, just doing what I can for you to love me. So it's like her expressing, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just doing what I need to do. There's such, you conjures up this innocence of some child who's just performing, and we know that the child's not perfect or is an amateur, but we still love them and applaud them anyway because we deserve love for them to know they're bearing their soul for us. They're really trying. They're really, really putting their heart on the line, and she's doing that on this album. So I view this song as a personal, just, it's her putting herself out there and saying, like, I'm vulnerable, but please just don't be too harsh on me. You know, like, I'm just trying. I'm just trying to put on a fun show. I'm just feeling my way around. And yeah, she's making up the moves as she goes along. She wouldn't have known 5 years ago that this was the kind of album that she was going to make. You know, she doesn't know where the next step's coming. She's sort of just feeling out what's right for her and her soul at the given moment. So that playfulness to the song, and speaking of some like child and some performance, really comes through in the production of this song, and it feels beautiful and you can dance to it. It has a hardcore beat, but it also has some light, shimmery, chime-like sounds that really illustrate the melody really beautifully. Really strong melody to this song. All right, so then we come to Right Road. This is definitely a more kind of brooding, melancholy song. It's a very minor key song, basically, and she's basically saying, look, I get off track sometimes, but I'll get back on the right road today. You know, like, I know the way forward. It's a bendy, twisty, weird detour, but I know the way through. There's almost sort of this sense of building towards something, like understanding, like through deconstructing everything else, that I know how to persevere. I know how to get through this. And again, there's some amazing production. I think the production, although it does overwhelm her voice, I wish her voice shone through a little higher because I do think it matches too closely to the production. It's so off-putting, but it's so beautiful sounding. The way the synths just kind of swoop in and out. I don't know how to explain it, but it gives it this really kind of didactic quality that I think is really appealing and alluring and mysterious almost. But like I said, her voice does get a little bit hard to distinguish from everything else that's going on in the song. But I mean, I appreciate that. It's a little bit more experimental. She sounds less like a pop star and more like some backing vocal on some experimental song, which is, you know, where this song is going in that territory. So the final song on this album is definitely the most soft, quiet, and emotional song on this album. This song is speaking of just keep going. You, like a phoenix, are going to be reborn from the ashes. You know, it's so hushed and it's so soft in its delivery. It's so motherly. Again, it speaks to her folklore album, I think, directly because it has that feeling of something you would sing to a child. Also of speaking of being tired, you know, you've carried the world on your back for so long and now you're done. You've burned both ends of the candle. You know, you're so tired from trying to make all of this work. And so take a moment to really rejuvenate yourself. And the song has that sort of healing effect. And I think that's really just what she was going for. She wanted something that was powerful, but also healing and subdued from the rest of the song, from the album, from being too overpowering. You know, John Congleton isn't on this song. So it's a bit, it was written actually, it was one of the first songs written for the album. And it really speaks to this sort of introspective space that she was dealing with, where she could be singing to herself. And I still feel she is mostly singing about herself, but she could also be singing to anyone in the world who it's so open to interpretation, you know, anyone who's struggling to feel like a phoenix rising from the ashes, to overcome their hardships or their depression or this hard place that they're put in. And there is a sense of being at rock bottom and trying the only way you can look is up. So the sounds just surround you. It's close, it's calming, it's ends the album on a beautiful note. And there's almost sort of just this like murmur in the background of beats, which is just distant enough that makes you think something's building. It's not quite in your face yet. There's just the stepping stones are being placed. All in all, it's a beautiful album that I think thematically is so well scripted, and I think the songwriting is the highlight for sure. Some of the songs are less accessible than others, but I will really appreciate them. Some songs I like more than others, but I still appreciate them. There's just so much heart and soul on this album, and it's so experimental and different that seriously, if you've slept on this album, I really recommend giving it a chance. Any Nelly Furtado fans out there, or any pop music fans in that matter, I think people who, you know, are willing to open their eyes a little bit more to different sounds, I think you're going to really enjoy this album. It's a shame that it's so criminally under the radar for 2017, but you know, that's just the way things go. Artists come to the top and then they go down again, and we see that all the time with pop stars, and it's fine, you know, it's just what it is. But I really hope that Nelly felt like she really got something off her chest with this album that was more personal and more kind of like a close-knit conversation between two people. Like this album is so beautifully illustrated, I think, by like going to a cafe with a close friend and discussing things one-on-one. Whereas her previous albums were like going to a concert and belting out things for the whole arena to hear. This album is just a one-on-one conversation between you and yourself, or you and a partner, you and a friend. This album is intimate. This album is close. This album is insular. And it's really comforting because of that. And I always will find comfort from this album and from the sounds. And I always will appreciate the abstraction of it because it's hinting at much more abstract ideas of living, and you know what living really is about, and what fame is really about, and what success is really about, and where we're going as a society, and what love is truly about. So I really applaud Nelly for this album. It may not be ultimately my favorite Nelly Furtado record, but it's really hard for me to pick favorites because I really do love Loose, because you can just let go to that album and it feels good, but it also has some very spiritual, beautiful sounding songs on that album. So it is the perfect blend of both. But this album, there's just something unique and special that I think over time is also going to only grow. It's only going to ripen because none of these songs on first listen really catch you. Maybe a few do, but that's not what this album is about. It's not about that first listen grab. It's about building that relationship with it and getting more interested as you move forward. So let me know what you thought about the album in the comments. If any Nelly Furtado fans happen to stumble upon this review, I will review The Spirit Indestructible. I will review Loose. I may even review Whoa Nelly and Folklore. We'll see. I haven't gotten so into some of those songs. I mean, obviously we all know I'm Like a Bird, and you know, her songs like Try and Turn Off the Light. But I definitely want to go through Loose and The Spirit Indestructible because I have a lot to say about those two albums because I really appreciate them. So look forward to that, and I hope to see you in the next review. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day. Peace, love, and light. Bye.